And that is why I have such an issue with body positivity and fat acceptance, because at its core, they truly do believe that you cannot lose weight. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for a number of years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about fat acceptance and body positivity, my experiences with all of that, and well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So today I found a TikTok that has a fat acceptance thought experiment. So I figured we could do this thought experiment together, and I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts along the way. And it should go without saying, but I will say it anyway. Please do not send any hate or harassment towards this creator or any creator featured on this channel. We'll go ahead and debate topics and ideas, but we don't need to go after people. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this and see what this thought experiment is all about.
Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a thought experiment. Go along with me. It's going to require some imagination and some effort, but this is going to be very...
And for those of you who are just listening and not watching, it does say on here, fat liberation and trauma therapist on the screen. So do with that information what you will.
Very, very useful, especially if you're someone who is interested in being a part of the fat liberation movement, and if you're wanting to divest from anti-fat bias that our culture has taught you. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's imagine.
Okay, she had us in the first half, not gonna lie. So definitely is gonna take a fair bit of imagination on my part, which I do love. So let's see where this takes us.
That we all were raised in a culture that taught us that the weight of someone's body was something that they could not change.
Okay, so immediately this is going to take a lot more imagination than I thought. Basically, I'm going to have to set aside my entire lived experience, especially for the last 15 or so years. So tell you what, instead of this thought experiment, how about I just play devil's advocate to this thought experiment and see how that goes instead.
Similarly to somebody's stature, how tall they are or how short they are, similar to eye color, skin color, hair color.
The thing about all of those traits that she just listed, changing your height or your stature. Now, I admit this is a bit extreme and fairly rare, but limb lengthening surgery does exist. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't suggest you look it up. But it is very rare and extreme. But I can definitely think of something that a lot of people participate in to change their height, at least temporarily, all the time. High heels. People wear heels all the time. Whether it's because they really want to change their stature, or they just like the way they look, or they like how it makes their legs look, whatever the case may be. People participate in that all the time, and they do change their height. So that's something you change. And hair color, I mean, really? I just dyed this last night. I mean, I am a natural redhead, but I like this shade and tone just a little bit better. So yeah, we can definitely change our hair color. That's pretty simple to do. Or people wear wigs all the time and change up their entire appearance. Eye color, there's contact lenses that you can change from any color you'd like in the rainbow to, I mean, would you like to be a different animal? Would you like to be a vampire? There's all sorts of contact lenses out there to change your eyes if you'd like. I mean, again, these are all temporary and optional, but these things can be changed. Skin color, you know, I don't know if I have the right amount of melanin to be speaking on that, but I do know that there are some controversial things about that as far as changing your skin color. There are, for example, skin lightening creams that are very prevalent in India and other cultures in Asia. So I'll just say I am not melanated enough to speak on that, but those other things she listed, 100%. People can and do change, at least temporarily, all the time. We'll continue.
that the size and weight of someone's body was similarly unchangeable.
Well, I did just give examples that those other traits can be at least temporarily changed. And we know that body size can change. I mean, we obviously can get larger. We grow. I mean, I did not birth full-size adults. They were little tiny babies, and they definitely grew. If body size were unchangeable, once we reached our adult size, our adult height and weight, wouldn't it not change anymore? Whenever they talk about body size changing in body positivity or fat liberation, it seems to only be in regards to losing weight. That's the only way that body size is unchangeable, because as long as you're maintaining or gaining weight, that's a-okay. And you just can't change it back smaller. So once again, weight is always the one-way door in which it can only maintain or go up, but can never come back down. At least when you're dealing with the lens of body positivity or fat liberation. They truly do not believe that people can actually lose weight, despite my lived experience. So
now, I know your mind is already arguing with that, but we're just going to put those arguments to the side and let them be there.
No, we're not. I'm playing devil's advocate because we have to challenge bad ideas. If you just sit there and think we need to accept every idea because it's an idea and let's just run an experiment with it, no, we can reject bad ideas. It's okay. That is exactly what we should do. We should not accept terrible ideas. Even if this is just a thought experiment, no, we should really always fight bad ideas right at the source.
But I want you to stay in control of your thought process and just go, how would I feel differently about my own body size and weight?
How would I feel differently about my own body size and weight? At which age? Ask me which age you would like me to give you an answer for. Because at different ages in my life, I have been vastly different weights. And accordingly, vastly different body sizes. So how would I feel about my weight when I was 25? I have a whole video on it, but I mean, just the gist of it, yeah, I felt terrible all the time. And not because of how people treated me or society or anything of that nature, but because I was not comfortable. I was so large that I was out of breath all the time. I couldn't tie my own shoes. I was having trouble fitting in clothing and my car and fitting in chairs that were built for normal sized people. I could no longer fit into those things. And it occurred to me that they build cars to fit people, and I am no longer able to fit in that. That's a wake-up call for me. At least it was. And if you ask me how I feel about my body size and my shape and my weight now, fabulous. Because I don't have to deal with those things anymore. I don't even think about those things anymore. I never worry if I'm going to fit in a seat. I never worry if I'm going to fit behind the wheel of my car any longer. I never have to worry about tying my own shoes. I don't have to worry about being out of breath just because I went to go walk to get the mail. And that has nothing to do with my appearance or how people treated me or society or anything other than my own lived experience. And so if you're going to ask me how I would feel about my body size and my weight, you would have gotten very, very different answers depending on what part of my life you would have asked me. And the thing is I'm still the same person. I'm still me throughout this whole thing. I'm still me. And I know exactly what I felt like and exactly what I lived through and why I don't ever want to live that way again. That's just a really hard question to ask somebody, even if this is just supposed to be a thought experiment where you can use your imagination. Because at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all going to relate it back to our own experiences. And my experiences definitely showed me that my weight and my body size really did affect my quality of life. No matter how I wanted to think otherwise, it wouldn't. It really did. And knowing that was a huge piece to the puzzle as to why I was able to move past it. Not just accept it, but to sit there and go, I don't have to accept it and I can change it. We'll continue. I must say it is fun being a devil's advocate, so.
And how would I feel differently about other people's weight?
I don't really worry about anyone else's weight. At all, ever in life. It's not my concern. It's not my worry. My worry is me, my family, my children. Do I worry about their health? Absolutely. Of course I do. Do I worry about their weight? Yeah, because I know the statistics and I know the risks, and I know that if you have obesity in childhood, it is very likely to have obesity in adulthood because it's very hard to break those habits. It's incredibly hard to break those habits. So it's a lot easier and a lot better for me as a parent to try to instill those good habits, to stay active, to eat balanced, healthy foods in moderation, and to just generally try to have a better outlook with food and with life than I did at their ages. And so far they seem to. That's all I can hope for. Other people though, like strangers, even like other family members and friends, that's their concern. That's their business. It's none of mine. Concern has always been for my health and how that made me feel. My issue with body positivity and fat liberation comes so much from them trying to discourage people from finding that out for themselves, and from believing this notion that you can't change your body size. And if you can change your body size, it's only to make it larger. So let's continue.
I imagine that for some of us, we might feel this tremendous relief from the shame of how we got ourselves here.
Shame or awareness and accountability? I find often a lot of people tend to confuse these terms now. If you ever want to change anything in your life, the first step is you have to be aware of it. And then once you're aware of it, you have to hold yourself accountable. There shouldn't be any element of shame to it, but when you become aware of things, it can make you feel some sort of way. And it might not feel all that great once you really see the reality of maybe your actions or what you might be doing to yourself. And I find that oftentimes people don't want to sit at all with that discomfort and become aware, nor do they want to hold themselves accountable. And then you've got movements like fat acceptance and body positivity saying, well, you don't need to because you can't change your body size. This is a core belief for a lot of people in body positivity and fat acceptance, that they can't lose weight, and that even if they tried, they would just gain it all back and then some. So what's even the point? Or that there's set point theory, or all of these things. And it all comes down to this notion you can't change your body size. I don't know, maybe I just watched too much G.I. Joe as a kid, but now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
And for others, there might be this anxiety and this discomfort about how they can't feel better than somebody else.
I don't know, a little anxiety or discomfort. That seems a little odd, the way she worded that. I don't know. So I'll just say this. It feels like the type of person who would, I don't know, maybe try to make themselves feel better by looking down on other people. They're the type of person that would always find a reason. Regardless of its body size or whatever the reason, they're always going to find that reason. So if we take that out of the equation, they will just find another reason, because that's just the type of person that they are. And these types of people have always kind of existed, and we know that they're jerks. So
for some of us, there might be a lot of anger and rage that might surface.
Honestly, it's just mostly confusion and, well, dare I say, a bit of amusement while I play devil's advocate at this point. So
at how fat people are being treated when we have this idea that they got themselves here and it's their fault. And if they tried harder, they could be thin and therefore have all the privileges that come with being thin.
Okay, well, she said a lot there, so let's go back through it. Okay, so I guess just to be that person, in what way are you talking that they're treated? That's a very broad generalization. And in what way are you talking about? So hopefully she will clarify, and we'll talk about that. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I really hate the term thin privilege. At least when I speak for myself, it was not a privilege that was handed to me. I worked very hard to get here and have to stay aware and hold myself accountable to maintain. It's not a privilege, it is a series of decisions that have led to my lifestyle, which in the society that we live in, that is full of fast food, 24/7 restaurants, all you can eat buffets, junk food aisles in stores everywhere you go, and it doesn't even have to be a grocery store. Yeah, that does take a little bit of hard work sometimes. And so I don't really consider it a privilege, but maybe she will explain this a little bit further.
I imagine for some of you, it might be the first time that you can understand and relate to the indignation and the anger and the rage that fat people experience about not having the.
I have trouble empathizing with some of that sometimes because I did not go through that. I was not angry at the world or had rage towards anything. If anything, I was angry at myself because I knew what I was doing. Even if I wasn't aware enough to want to hold myself accountable at that point, I still knew what I was doing. And I knew it was me, not the world.
Same access to things like medical care.
Okay, so now she is starting to give some examples. So in 2024, there are still approximately 27 million Americans that are completely uninsured. No health insurance, no Medicaid, Medicare, none of that. Just flying by the seat of their pants and hoping that they don't get sick or injured or require a surgery or anything. Hopefully they don't get bit by a bug, or, I mean, maybe I'm just speaking from experience here because I have been in that pool of uninsured far more times than I care to admit, and as an adult. Thankfully, right now I do have insurance, but more oftentimes than not in my adult life, I have not had insurance. So access to medical care, that's the requirement to access to medical care in this country. Okay, and if we want to talk about access to certain medical procedures or surgeries and things of that nature, then there are reasons that those things are in place for a lot of people. It's because we have data that shows that there's a lot more risk once you are a certain size, whether that's to be put under anesthetic, whether that's to be cut open and have a lot more tissue and fat cut through. There's a lot that plays into it that they really have studied as to why they've come to these decisions. They're not just out here denying people care because they're a certain size. They're trying to do what's best for their patient, at least for the vast majority of doctors and healthcare providers out there. And then the other big complaint that I hear all the time is every time I go to the doctor, all they ever want to do is bring up my weight. But this is the thing. Anytime you have anything chronic going on, they're going to continually to bring it up. If you have high blood pressure, they'll bring it up. If you're a smoker, they'll bring it up. If you have chronic conditions, like I have a multitude of chronic conditions, they're going to run down the checklist of how I am with all of those things, even if that is not why I went to the doctor, because that might be the only time they see me in the last, 6 months or maybe a year. They're going to want to touch base with me on all of those things because that is how it works in this country. Most of us don't go to the doctor frequently, so they're going to try to catch you when they see you. And again, as somebody who just did not have health insurance for a really long time, it always just felt so ironic to me that people were complaining about getting told to lose weight when they go to the doctor. And I was over here just begging to be able to get an appointment with any doctor because I didn't have insurance. So the irony. I would have loved a doctor to have told me to lose weight because that would have meant I got to see a doctor. But again, the irony.
And seating and clothing and the ability.
Okay, we got through two there. So seating and clothing. Okay, seating, I will admit there were definitely times when I was overweight that seating in bars and restaurants were not always the most comfortable. But I would look around the restaurant and it was very clear that even though we do have a very large percentage of people in this country that are overweight or obese, at 360 pounds, I definitely was at the very extreme edge. And that meant there weren't a whole lot of people I would see out in public that were much larger than me. So they're supposed to cater all of their seating to people that were my size. when the vast majority of people had no problem with that. At the end of the day, I always figured out arrangements and accommodations for myself because I knew I was outside of the norm. And I wasn't going to make it somebody else's problem. I was going to go ahead and handle the problem for myself. Other seating as far as, for example, baseball games. We got baseball season starting this week. So excited for that. And I went to a lot of baseball games, even at my heaviest. I've gone to about, we're coming up on this season, I'll hit my 100th baseball game that I've gone to in my life. And when I was at my heaviest, I knew I was probably not going to fit in the regular stadium seating with the arms on the chairs. So got my bleacher seats and sat out in the outfield in the bleachers, which was a fantastic time. And I didn't have to worry about that then. When I'd go to bars and restaurants, figure out where the seating was that I could get into, and there it was. And you know what, at the end of the day, all of those things at the time I did find workarounds for, but they also were kind of wake-up calls to me to let me know that, whoa, nobody else seems to be having this problem. Maybe this is a me problem that I should handle. Now we've got clothing. Okay, so clothing, we're dealing with mass-produced clothing, and anyone who is at any extreme, whether you're short, you're tall, you're very thin, or you're very overweight, you're going to run into issues because they're trying to aim for the middle of the road market. That's what they're always trying to do. Their target demographic is always going to be the widest net that they can cast. And when you are at the extremes of clothing sizes, you're going to have a harder time. And I say this knowing full well at 5'9", I have a very difficult time still finding pants that fit me the way that I would like to, that are a cute style and color and all of that, and then long enough. It's really difficult. Or finding sleeves that are long enough. So I do still run into a lot of difficulty finding tall clothes, especially in store. But I know online where I can go shop and I can order it. And is it not as convenient sometimes? Sure, but it's there and I can do it. And it's really not that big of a deal. So clothing options, if you're on the fringes of any sizing, you're going to run into issues. And that's just unfortunately what it's going to be. It's not a bug. That's a feature of mass-produced clothing and capitalism, all rolled into one. And also, I would like to point out, there are substantially more choices now than there ever used to be in plus-size clothing. I know what my choices were back in the day. It was Lane Bryant, Old Navy, or Target. That was it. We didn't really have online shopping yet. It was still kind of in its infancy, and what did exist was not good, not good at all. And I'm very pleased to see how many more options there are for all sorts of sizes. I have an easier time finding tall clothing now than I used to. So I can definitely say that things have changed in that regard. But when you're on the extreme edges of sizing, this is going to be what happens.
The ability to move freely through the world without being harassed.
What? When does that start? What? Okay, yeah, moving through the world without being harassed? Wow. Okay, so just my own personal experience here, playing devil's advocate. At 360 pounds, I was never harassed. Never. At least not directly to my face. Nobody ever came up to my face and said anything. Ever. Never had to worry about getting catcalled. Never had to worry about creeps coming up to me. Didn't really have to worry about a whole lot of anything except if my shoes came untied. Now, at 180 pounds, the creeps are incessant. It's concerning. It made me fear for my safety more times than I can even count. Okay, so I have two prime examples, both of which did happen last summer, of harassment that turned incredibly scary and creepy on me that I never had to deal with at 360 pounds. Okay, so the first one, I was out in my backyard, and now for reference, our backyard, we live on a corner, so our backyard's kind of our side yard, which means we have a lot of people driving by and walking by all the time. So we have a fence up and try to just keep to ourselves, but it's my backyard and I'm still gonna go outside and enjoy it. And we have a pool back there that we put up in the summer. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I go out and I'm scrubbing down the sides of the pool and getting it ready so we can go swimming later the day. And I'm out there in just shorts and a tank top, scrubbing down my pool. And somebody drives by and literally parks their car like directly in front of me, gets out in the street and starts yelling like obscenities and catcalling me so loudly I can hear it like echoing off my neighbors' houses. And I'm I like froze. I was so like taken aback and just completely freaked out in that exact moment that I mean, like, thankfully I had a neighbor that pulled up and also got up out of their vehicle and told him to get back in theirs, and they almost got into a scuffle right in the middle of the street. But yeah, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, because at one point while he's sitting there like trying to harass me, he starts walking up on my yard, and that's right when my neighbor pulls up. It was terrifying, and I never had to deal with that kind of level of harassment before. Then let's see, also one of the times I went to the grocery store last summer, I had this guy follow me through like 5 different aisles. Now mind you, I am trying to evade him and take some really crazy routes all over the store to go get the stuff that I need and just get away from him. Basically, he found me and started following me through 4 or 5 different aisles, and the only way that I was able to get rid of him at that point was I had to laugh in his face and tell him to leave me alone, and then immediately go find a store employee and have a very awkward conversation over cat food so that man would leave me alone. The harassment, ooh boy, yeah, no. And then we won't even talk about the last job that I had before I stayed home with my kids now. I had to quit that job because of harassment and being stalked, and yeah. So I would love to know when that starts. Absolutely love to know when that actually starts, because I never had to deal with that before, and I deal with it all the time now, and it's terrifying. So
That then people get. I imagine that some of us would suddenly be aware of how exploitive and ridiculous and harmful it is that there is this $70 billion a year weight loss industry.
Yes, there is a weight loss industry that people have the ability to choose to participate in or not, just like any other goods and services out there. That being said, most of what the diet industry peddles, like Weight Watchers and like meal plans and stuff like that, like Jenny Craig, all that, they don't have good success rates. They do charge you a lot of money, and there's a lot of horror stories out there to where I think most people do feel comfortable, even those of us who have successfully lost weight, will go ahead and say that these are not good things. And also, I would just like to say, if we're going to talk about the $70 billion a year diet industry, that again, most of us who have lost weight also agree with you on and think that it is absolutely terrible, then we also need to, in the same breath and with the same enthusiasm, talk about the fast food industry, beverage industry, the junk food industry in this country, and a whole host of other industries in this country that are making money off of selling us more and more food.
That is profiting off of us believing this lie that we can lose weight with their programs.
And again, I do believe that most of us who have successfully lost weight, at least those that I have seen online share our stories, we all agree with you on that. You don't need to spend a single dime to lose weight, but that does not make weight loss impossible. The reason the diet industry fails is because they're always trying to give you a one-size-fits-all program. And whether or not that program may work for one person somewhere or not, it's not going to work for the masses. Because as I've told people in real life, and I will always tell people on this channel, you have to find what works for you. There is no one-size-fits-all to weight loss. Even calories in, calories out is very nuanced, and there's a lot to it. Doesn't make it any less true, but there is no one-size-fits-all to this, and that's why they can't bottle it and sell it to you, because if they could, they would. And my cat just walked on my boom stand and shook the whole thing. So
I imagine for some of us, we might not even know what to do with ourselves. Where would our energy go? What would we think about? What would we do every day if we weren't pursuing weight loss?
you know, it also will solve that too. If you pursue weight loss and then you're successful, you don't have to think about it anymore. If you actually make those changes to your life, yeah, you just do it. And yeah, it does take some hard work from time to time, simply because there is temptation all around us. But as far as the idea that I need to lose weight, nope, I don't really have to think about that anymore. So that solved that problem right there for me. I don't have to imagine some hypothetical world in which we can't lose weight. we could just do the thing that is possible in our very real world.
What would we talk about with our friends and around the water cooler and at lunchtime with our coworkers if we weren't talking about our diets and our wellness programs and our pursuits at staying healthy or thin?
I don't know, hobbies, interests, our families, normal things that normal people talk about all the time. I mean, I could talk about sports, I could talk about music, we could talk about nerd stuff all day long. I could talk to you all day about my kitties, okay? What would you like to know about my kids? Like normal conversations that normal people have. That's what people would talk about. They would still talk about the normal things in their lives like most normal people do.
I imagine that some of us might feel this tremendous relief about what it would feel like to interact with our family members if they weren't bringing up our weight every time we saw them.
Again, it also helps that if you just, lose weight. And again, I'm not trying to say that it's easy and everyone can just do it. There are solutions to these things, these hypotheticals that she wants us to keep thinking about. Imagine a world where this exists just so you could have this thing that also has a very real solution now, but we're going to pretend doesn't exist.
I imagine that for so many of us who are parents, we might feel this huge relief about not having to worry about what our children's bodies look like and what they might experience in the world.
Okay, I am a parent. I do have 2 kids, and I worry about a lot of things with my children. Of course, that's what I'm going to do. I'm their mommy, right? But also, it's my job to raise them and to parent them and to teach them all of the things that they don't know, which is substantial because, they're little tiny humans. So you got to teach them everything. But it is our job as parents to teach our children how to take care of themselves, how to care for their surroundings, their home, their belongings, their bodies. Might not have to worry about my children's body size. Well, no, because I don't have to worry about that because I'm teaching them how to take care of their bodies. And, as their parent, that's my job.
I imagine that for so many of us, there's this reclaiming of time and energy and thoughts and effort that we would get back if we weren't spending so much time being concerned about the weight of our bodies.
And again, you know what also is the solution to that? Not to beat a dead horse.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead.
If you just lose the weight, it does solve that problem. So we don't need to go down this hypothetical rabbit hole when there is already a practical solution. And that's where I have a big issue with body positivity and fat liberation, because they really truly do believe these things, that you can't change your body size. And so if you can't change your body size, you should just accept it. And that's where they've got me all messed up, and really honestly got me messed up to the point when I was at 360 pounds, I still wanted to believe it and was trying to figure out how I could justify to some of these people that were in my community and in my friends group, how I could try to lose weight for my health and it not be offensive to them or a personal affront to them or a problem. I don't like where this ends for a lot of people.
This thought experiment can bring up a lot of reactions inside, some of which are really freeing and liberating.
Yep, it's all freeing and liberating until you reach the point where I was and you can't tie your own shoes. And then you don't really feel liberated at that point anymore. You kind of start feeling like a prisoner in your own body. So.
Others that are really uncomfortable. But the truth of the matter is that the weight of one's...
Not really uncomfortable, just mostly ironic and confusing and again, funny. This thought experiment, it's a faulty experiment from the get-go. It is not a fair experiment because it's clear she is trying to direct your thinking that you can't control your weight, there's nothing you can do about it, and you should just give up and stop thinking about it and then What would you really want to talk to your friends at the water cooler about?
Body is largely outside of one's control and is related.
So, say we do follow her little thought experiment here and believe that it is largely outside of one's control. Now, initially, she did start off this thought experiment saying it was outside of your control. Now it's largely outside of your control. Do you see the sly way she is trying to change up the language so that way it's argumentative and persuasive and you'll believe that it really is largely outside of your control? So, say we do believe that it is largely outside of our control. Shouldn't you try to do the part that you can? Shouldn't you try to do the best in the portion that you can control?
And is related to things that people cannot change. Things like whether or not you were raised in wealth, things like socioeconomic status, things like genetics, things like trauma, medications, chronic pain, things that are outside of people's control.
Okay, to that effect, most of those things are outside of people's control to most degrees. There's a lot of nuance to a lot of those different topics there for sure. But that being said, you still can change your weight. You still have the ability to make positive changes in your life and in your lifestyle that will have direct consequences on your weight if you so choose. Me making those changes in my lifestyle didn't change the fact that I definitely wasn't raised wealthy. Didn't change the fact that I've definitely gone through some trauma in my life. Hasn't changed the fact that I still have chronic medical conditions. I'm always going to have those. I will definitely say they are infinitely easier for me to manage now. And I can only imagine what it would be like to manage some of the conditions that I've got at 360 pounds. It would be a whole different life than what I'm leading right now. None of those things have changed in my life, but yet I was still able to change my weight.
And I'm not going to spend this video going into weight science. That's a whole graduate degree program that I cannot share in a 5-minute video.
Not even a little taste? Not even the tip? Just see how it feels?
But I want you to practice unlearning what we are all taught about weight, which is that it is under a person's control, and if they wanted to, they could change.
Yeah, I'm not going to practice that. I don't think I will at all, actually, because I'm not going to turn my back on my own lived experience, nor I'm going to turn my back on decades of medical research that indicates that being obese is incredibly damaging to your health, and especially the longer it continues in your body. No, thank you. I don't think I will, no matter how much you want me to go down this thought experiment. It was fun doing the devil's advocate for a time, but no, in all seriousness, no. I'm not going to do that, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that that's even a notion that we are even trying to consider at this point. You can change your body size, and I am so glad that I never thought that way, even when I was 360 pounds. Even as I was gaining weight, I knew, at least in the back of my mind, even if I wasn't willing to make the change yet, I knew that I was doing it to myself. But because I was doing it to myself, I knew I could get myself out of it. And if we tell people that they can't change it, they're never going to try to improve. And that is why I have such an issue with body positivity and fat acceptance, because at its core, they truly do believe that you cannot lose weight.
And really sitting with the reality of what if that's all untrue?
What if? What if you believe in yourself and you figure out what works for you, you stay committed, you stay consistent, and then you never have to think about your weight ever again?
What if the size and shape of one's body is something that they cannot change?
Yes, you can change it. Again, here we go, at 360 pounds, and here I am now. Yes, you can change it.
How would that change me?
If I hadn't lost weight, I don't know if I would have made it to 40. Certainly don't think I would have made it to 50.
How would that change how I feel about myself and other people, and how would that change my behavior?
Again, I don't think about anyone else's weight. I worry about myself. I worry about my family, those that are incredibly close to me, whose health and safety is of my utmost concern. But Joe Schmo walking down the street, that's his business. That's his problem, not mine.
I would love to hear what came up for you in this thought experiment in the comments, or make a stitch, or and I will be liberal with deleting comments and blocking folks. Please, no weight loss content. Just let me know what came forward for you.
Well, I'm glad that I am making this video instead of obviously leaving a comment, because I'm sure she would have deleted and blocked me right away. Also, I'd like to point out that this is another big issue within the fat acceptance and body positivity communities. This is the idea that they want to create their echo chambers, and they do not want to hear any outside opinion. They don't want to hear anyone else's experiences, anyone else's feelings on the matter. If it doesn't line up with exactly what they believe, they don't want to hear it. I find that to be just very ironic that you want to know what was brought up, but there's no way I can tell you what was brought up without me saying that I think it's all a bunch of crap, because I know that you can lose weight because I've done it. And I know that would instantly get that comment taken down, and she would block me and all of those things because she doesn't want to admit it. And most people in this community do not want to admit it either. Let's just go ahead and do our own little thought experiment. And that is, what if you figure out what works for you, you make a plan, you stay committed and consistent, and then you never have to worry about your weight again. Or we could create a fantastical world in which you can't change your body size, there's no health risks whatsoever to obesity, and, well, guess it just is what it is. Now, believe me, I know it is fun to use our imagination. I am no stranger to fantasy and sci-fi and, all things fun and nerdy. But also, I know that they are very much not real life. And I know that in the real world, we do have to come up with real solutions. And instead of coming up with these fantastical ideas that your weight is not connected to your health or your actions, how about we actually go ahead and be honest, aware, and hold ourselves accountable? So there you have it, our fat acceptance thought experiment. And, well, I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. That is where we will leave things today. Thank you so much for joining me. And be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Bye. Okay, I'm not even joking. This kitty is in literal heaven. Look at this. She climbs inside my sweatshirt. What, you thought you were gonna get some Popey or something? Like, look at all of her fluff. Look at all of this. It's glorious. She's got a lot.